Um, I was going to show one more time. I'd shown this on the Globe years ago. But anyway, I was watching a special one time where these scientists were doing electronic work on this cave, but not a cave, it was a cliff, a mountain cliff. And at the bottom they noticed it was positive, negative. They'd go up so many feet, and it was negative, positive. They'd go up so many more feet, and it was positive, negative again, and so on and so forth. But they had theorized that the earth had shifted polarities, that what was north became south, what was south became north. Now, if that happened, it would probably cause a giant flood on the earth when the earth starts turning and the water goes over the land. But another thing, if there was a giant flood, which there was, Mount Everest is the highest mountain in the world, and it sits between India and China, right about here. Now, if you notice the population densities of the world, that India is far more populated. I mean, it's not, China has more people, but it's larger than India. But ain't it strange that they sit right around Mount Everest, the tallest mountain in the world? Now, if there was, and here's another thing, if there was a flood and there was this guy called Noah, and the Mount Everest was probably the only place high enough that there was safe ground. Now, he probably had a boat, but as the mountains that's not as tall as Mount Everest started to go underwater, Noah and his sons probably took that boat around to rescue the animals and bring the animals that were about to go underwater on smaller mountains than Mount Everest up to the top of Mount Everest or somewhere on Mount Everest where they would be safe. They probably took 40 days to do that. But not only that, the story of Manu in Hinduism, you'll have to Google Hinduism Manu or Manu in Hinduism, is the same story as Noah's Ark. But in that story, they were on Mount Everest. And you can clearly see, like I say, the population densities of the world are still, most of the population of the world still lives around Mount Everest. Not on Mount Everest now. But if Noah had 3 sons, one went south from here right on into Africa type of thing. He's probably the father of the black race of people. And then one, you cross over here, this mountain range here, the Himalayas, highest mountains in the world, into China, and all this is Asian people over here. Now you go north, and they probably went north and as far west as they could go. You go north and west, and you can see the populations as of the white person, the father of the white race. There's 3 races of people on this earth today. But to think that even Jesus wasn't in a Buddhist monastery, gosh, the Buddhas, they're right there at the foot of Mount Everest in the Himalayas. They're Tibetan Buddhist and that type of thing, and that's where what they call the Vedic scriptures. The Buddha read the Vedic scriptures. His mom and pop were both of that persuasion called Vedic, and Jesus came from Israel and crossed and went to India, if not through a boat, right through here and into India. But anyway, that brings up one thing, and another thing is that tells about it is this lost years of Jesus. There's no record. The Gospels record Jesus at age 12 in the temple, then about the age 30 at the River Jordan. That leaves approximately 17 years unaccounted for. I've noticed that every parable that's in the New Testament is also in this Buddha book, too, type of thing. And this is 500 years before Christ. But anyway, later on maybe I'll read out of that book a little bit so you'll understand or see the similarities between the Gospels and what is the teachings of Buddha. But anyway, if you choose to ignore this, that's up to you. But remember, the name ignorant comes from the word ignore.